Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, welcome back to the Prodcast. I am your host, Jim Fogarty, broadcasting to you from Two Ticks and the Dog Productions up above Dave Grohl Alley in beautiful downtown Warren, Ohio. I got a guest co-host, very lucky to have him. He's actually been a former guest on the show. The illustrious and wonderfully dressed today, Dennis Blank.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
A pleasure.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, how clean's your car today, Dennis?
It could use a little work, I have to confess.
Well, I got to tell you, one of our sponsors, Coates Car Care, does just that. They wash cars. They actually have an unlimited wash club where you pay less than $1 a day. You can wash your car as many times as you want, once a day. They don't want you rolling through twice a day. And you can sign up for that at coatescarcare.com. Also download their app from that site, buy gift cards and send stuff for people for holidays. Holidays are coming up slowly.
Well, can I say that that's where I go to get my car washed when I wash it, and it's always been awesome. But these days I'm driving about twice a month, so I'm not sure I'm ready for the wash a day status yet.
I feel you. Well, that's pretty nice, though, because you have a couple of nice vehicles, so that's cool that you're entrusting Coates to wash them. We got a real quick announcement to make, too. Last half of the season, we're nearing towards the end. We got 10 episodes left, including this episode, and we want to announce and thank our new sponsors to Season 2, Station Square Restaurant in Liberty, which was just voted by Reader's Choice by the Tribune as the restaurant with the best seafood. If you guys ever eaten there, that's a pretty good place to chow down. And they've won innumerable Wine Spectator awards, and they've actually won the Best of Wine Spectator. They're the only restaurant in the Tri-County area. They're one of the few in actually Northeast Ohio. So want to shout out to them. Of course, they're going to be part of our giveaways that can be had at theprodcast.net. You can sign up for the giveaways. We're going to be drawing names out of the hat like we've been doing all season long for a car wash from Coates, a gift card. You could get a nice dinner over at Station Square, or you could get a nice dinner or a nice pizza from Salvatore's Italian Grill. So we want to thank them also for coming on. They've got 3 locations. And actually, before I even mention the locations, you guys ever been to Salvatore's in Howland?
Oh, yeah. Excellent food.
Excellent. So listen, they've got the best looking bartenders around. So fellas out there, if you want to have a socially distanced drink and you want to look at some really good looking female bartenders, ladies, I can't help you, okay? But if you want to look at some really good female bartenders, Salvatore's is the place, man.
That's actually weird. Salvatore's in Howland was my wife and I's first date 23 years ago.
Whew.
The very first day we ever had was there.
How was the food?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to the one in Austintown all the time.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. They have locations in Howland, Austintown, and Niles, which actually coincides with some locations of Coates. So if you win the drawing of the podcast, go get your car washed, and then in any of those places, and get yourself a pizza at Salvatore's.
It's a win-win.
It is a
Austintown, it's maybe a quarter mile. I use both. It's a quarter mile apart.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The Austintown Coates and the Austintown Salvatore's.
Austintown Coates is on the corner of, it's right by the highway, right by 11. So when you get off 11 on Mahoney, it's right there.
Yeah.
Right by the get-go, right next door. And then you can just go up the street right across from Dunkin' Donuts, and that's where Salvatore's is in Austintown. I mean, you probably could walk on a pretty day.
Thank you for giving us those directions and some commentary. I want to introduce both of our guests today. You've just heard from both Senator Michael Rulli and Senator Sean O'Brien, both Ohio senators from the 32nd and 33rd districts, respectively. Thank you for joining us today, gents.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, awesome to have you guys both. And for those who aren't familiar, these guys are on quote-unquote opposite sides of the aisle. So it's kind of weird to have a Dem and a Republican sitting here. But what's really kind of wild is that they work together on issues here locally, and they don't really, I don't want to speak for you guys, but like the D and the R really don't matter. It's like just getting the job done.
Exactly right. We focused on what is best for the Valley. When Mike first got elected, we got together immediately a couple days after the election, talked and said, look, DRR doesn't matter. What matters is what's best for the valley. Let's work together and see what we can do. And we've had some really great things going on in the valley with Lordstown Motors, with LG Chem and GM joint venture that's moving forward, TJX. Now the next power plant, which is another $1 billion investment. When you look what's going on in the valley and being able to work bipartisan, when I've had issues on my side of the aisle, Mike comes to me. When I have it on his side, and he comes, I go to him, and we've been able to work out some really important legislation that's helped the valley and helped move us forward. And I couldn't be more happy working with Mike.
I agree with that. I have a good friend that owns a couple car lots, John Kufleiter, and he has a saying, let the power of two work for you. So, an Ohio senator represents about 350 to 360,000. So Sean and I together, we represent, 750,000. There's only 33 senators. So when we are 98% together almost, and there's only one or two topics we're not, but whenever there's an issue here, we're always hitting it together because, we live here. When we're 80 years old and walking around together, we want to look people in the eye, say we gave it our best, we gave it everything we had together,
Well, I think that's interesting you bring that up about, moving into the future when you guys are in your 80s. You guys are both in your 40s. I know, Sean, you're in your 50s, aren't you?
Well, I thought we
dog.
weren't going there today.
Yeah, we're the same age, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys are both in your... I'm the young buck in the room here today.
Yeah, don't look over here.
Yeah, I won't even... But I think it's great that you're future forward focused on the things that you can accomplish, because for the listeners out there, and I don't know, did you guys know each other beforehand?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I saw him on TV on some of his commercials quite a bit. And,
right. Which is kind of what I want to get into. Michael is part of Rulli Brothers. Rulli Brothers is over 100 years in the grocery business. They've got a great grocery chain. You've got 3 locations, Mike?
Two stores and a warehouse.
Okay. And so I get there once in a while. I don't get there all that often, but man, they've always got great prices on produce. If you're interested in some really genuine Italian sauces and pasta and just all the stuff that my grandparents, made on Sunday. My grandmother or my grandfather used to take me to Rulli Brothers all the time. When we're in Warren, and that we used to go to the Austintown location.
Thank you.
And that's a drive, man. But we went because the prices were great, the produce was good. This isn't a Rulli Brothers commercial, I promise.
I do appreciate it.
Yeah, but I'm just kind of. You guys are from different backgrounds, and so Michael's got is a business owner, very successful, and Sean was a former Trumbull County assistant prosecutor, and before that. He was a state rep in Ohio's 63rd district.
63rd and 65. They changed the numbers.
Changed the districts. Yeah. But neither one of you guys really, this is the point I'm trying to make, neither one of you guys really needed to do this. You guys did this because you were passionate, and I think, Mike, you just kind of explained that. You're going to be 80 years old, and you're going to be, or your kids are going to be future forward, and you guys want to make sure that the valley is propped up for prosperity.
Well, absolutely. I have kids here, and I want them to stay here. And I hear a lot of people say that's the number one complaint they have. There's no jobs, no opportunity. And I think that's what Mike and I have been working towards, with, again, the projects we talked about. These are over $1 billion each one, and then they each produce about 1,200 jobs. So, that's the type of things we've been focusing on, and we want to be able to make sure there's opportunity for the future for our kids and their kids, and want to be a grandpa someday and be able to
slow down, Grandpa.
Well, someday.
Yeah, I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. My dad just had his birthday over the weekend, and I posted a post on my social media, and it blew up. It did, it got real big. My dad's dad died in 1957, and my dad was just turning 14. He's the only Ohioan to ever get a driver's license at 14. And getting
I saw that. Yeah.
And getting to know Sean's dad and Sean's family, Sean's mom is a very, very, very strong character. She's a very strong woman. And his dad has been so successful and worked so hard and came from nothing. And my dad is my dad's he's my hero. I mean, and the guy has just worked 100-hour work weeks for 60 some years. So the only reason why I'm saying these stories, I think Sean and I realized that since we have such strong, successful dads, it allowed us a platform and an ability to get involved in politics that most people don't have. And I know you mentioned, like, well, maybe we didn't want to, didn't have to do this. But when I was little, I almost thought about becoming a priest. And Father King was going to recruit me, and he was going to the Vatican for recruiting American priests. And he says, do you feel the calling? Do you feel the calling? And like Sean, when he was asking, he goes, why'd you get involved in this, with the store and everything? And I said, well, you come from a long line of construction and a long line of lawyers, and you were successful and a prosecutor. And, Sean owns a lot of downtown Warren and very successful. And we both came to the same realization. When you wake up every day and you walk around this skin that's your body, this frame that's your body, you could feel that soul inside. And we're not going to talk about today what's going to happen afterwards, but you are here. And so what are you going to do? Are you just going to be a participant? Are you just going to watch everything? Are you just an observer? And that's all you're going to do, and you're going to figure out how you're going to get your rocks off. You're going to have a beer, or you're going to buy a sports car. You're going to get a trophy wife. Is that's going to be your existence? I mean, and I think when we look around at this area and we hear the stories, it's like this place is like living a Bruce Springsteen song. I mean, I think if I had to hear one more story about how wonderful Warren and Youngstown was back in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, I think I would be sick. So, I think Sean and I realized that, answering to people when you're 80 walking around, it means a lot. Not only that, but I don't want to be hokey, but if we can leave this place better than we found it, my God. So, when you're younger and you're partying or you're doing whatever and you're outside and the stars are out there and you look to your buddy or your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever and you say, why are we here, man? Why did God create us? Why? He just didn't create us to consume. He created us to do more, and it sounds hokey, but I don't know if you feel the same way.
Oh, absolutely. We want to leave it a better place you found it, and that's why I think we're, trying to do the things we are. We don't let party get in front of us and stop that. It's more important to have success and move from there, and that's, I think, what we've been working on since we've gotten elected. I know Mike, from day one, we've been working that way, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
How'd that call go? He won. You won a very contested race. It was like I don't want to say it was a miracle, but I actually picked you to win. But yeah, seriously. But you were like a long shot.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Right?
It's 80% I was going to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know why I thought you'd win? Because, and we talked about it a little bit in the green room ahead of time, but we knew each other before. You're just a very sincere guy. And
Thanks.
The name, if you coupled the name with the business. If you'd ever been in a Mike's store, then you knew this is a hardworking guy. He doesn't really need this. And so, anyways, not to get into that, you win your seat in the Senate. And how's the call go? What made you call him, John?
Well, we had a mutual friend who said, hey, I'm friends with Mike Rulli. He wants to get to know you, get to talk with you. Can you give him a call? And I said, absolutely. I was going to reach out to him anyway. So we called and said, hey, look, let's meet downtown Youngstown and have coffee and, talk about the future. And that's, from day one, I didn't know Mike from anyone other than seeing him on a commercial and, knowing that strawberries are half off today.
Clean up in 4.
Clean up in aisle 4.
That's Sean's going to hit a little joke with me. Clean up in 4, Rulli. That actual first meeting was really something, though. We met downtown, and it was before the holidays. So, election was, I think, November 4th, 5th, or 6th, whatever it was. And it was, I think it was the week right at Thanksgiving. And so we meet, and the first thing he says to me is, Maria just left your store. And I said, man, you're really starting this off on the right foot.
Maria is Sean's wife, so obviously you went grocery shopping.
Yeah, she went grocery shopping in Rulli. So it started off on a good foot.
Yeah, the bromance started right then.
Right then and there.
Yeah.
But, we had a good, candid discussion and said, look, as Mike said, I don't care about partying. And I said, I don't either. I'm looking forward to working with you. And we went over some of the issues that the Valley's facing at that time, and Lordstown hadn't quite announced yet that the cruise was gone or going to be gone, but we said that's something we have to keep an eye on, and some of the other issues. And then as those issues came about, we were able to tackle them together and work towards the future.
Well, let's save some of those issues a little bit later in the show, I want to jump in and switch gears on what's happening in the now, right now. So just within the last week and a half, Speaker of the House in Ohio, Larry Householder, came up on charges alleged of a $60 million bribery scheme to pass House Bill 6, which was a nuclear energy bailout, a couple of nuclear energy plants up in Lake County and up near Toledo. And Householder has been alleged of a kind of a pay-to-play scheme, and that's going on today. And just today or yesterday, the first time in the history of the Ohio House, he was voted out. He's no longer the Speaker of the House. He has not yet resigned his position as a state rep, but this is going on right now. And I'm just curious, like, input on that. What are your thoughts? How is that going? What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I mean, he just also got indicted yesterday, so the federal grand jury convened and issued an indictment against him. I mean, it's, just having that indictment, we live in a culture where we are innocent to proven guilty, but, I mean, these allegations really hurt the House. I think it shows, it erodes a lot of the public confidence in what goes on, and, it's tragic in a way because it's frustrating and tragic because you work so hard and you're trying to do what's right, and there's so many public officials out there who are, and there's so many elected officials who every day try and go out and do what's right, and then to have something like this happen tarnishes all of us. So that's something that, we have to get over and rebuild the public trust, and that's why I introduced a repeal to House Bill 6, which was the bailout. I didn't think it was right at the time. I thought it was the wrong bill for the wrong purpose, for the wrong reasons, and I voted against it, and Mike did too, trying to pick winners and losers, and we have enough natural gas here in Ohio to power the country for 100 years. I think that is something that we need to explore and invest in instead of investing in dinosaurs that are no longer viable and able to competitively produce electricity. So House Bill 6, I think, just was the wrong bill. And then you can see how, allegedly through the scheme, if you read the indictment, they used dark money and passed it through a 501c4. And under those circumstances, a 501c4 is perfectly legal, but politicians are not supposed to have control over it. And allegedly, Householder did, and he was able to. The problem with them are really they're unregulated. Nobody knows who's donating to them, and where the money goes, and what happens with it. So one of the things that we're looking at, besides repealing House Bill 6, is trying to get some more transparency into the system, so people know where these 501c4s go, what the money is, who's donating them. Because if really, the householders of the world are just the tip of the iceberg. If we don't address campaign finance, then that's the fundamental underlying problem, that this will continue, and it's going to continue to erode public trust. And I think that's something that we're working on and looking at, and we're going to move forward on it here in the future in the Senate at the very least.
And that's not just statewide. That's nationwide. Big money in politics.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the money come from? And just for the prodders out there that are listening, we call our listeners prodders, just for your edification. Mm-hmm. The prodders out there listening, a 501c4, like, define that.
It's an entity that can receive money that is supposed to use it for the public good, for social reasons, or for a cause that you believe in, whether it's child hunger or something along those lines. But the problem is they can be used for nefarious reasons, like Householder did, because they don't have the same transparency laws that we do under our federal or state election laws. When I get a campaign donation, I have to record it. I have to write the date I got it, who gave it to me, their address. And when I do a campaign expenditure, I have to say, who did I spend this money on, or what did I spend it on? And it has to go through a review process, and they look it over, the Secretary of State's office, and make sure that it's for a legitimate election reason.
And your money can't come from a corporation.
Right. We can't accept money from certain entities. A corporation is one of them. So there are certain laws, and those I think are important because it adds transparency. So you know exactly who's trying to influence me, through, if it's donations or whatever. You can see that under a 501c4. You can't see that, and that money is just spread. In this case, I mean, you have some elections where in the House they spent $400,000 on the candidate, and that candidate ended up winning by only 8 votes, where the other candidate who did not support householder lost by 8 votes, but they had $400,000 spent against them. What would have happened if it was fair and open and, they had the same amount, or that money wasn't allowed to be in the election? It goes to, did they buy the election? I think an argument can be made they did. So that's not the type of election process we want in Ohio. And it's something that we have to reform, or else I think public trust is going to be eroded. And, public trust is what makes a democracy work. People then won't go out and vote. They won't believe in the system, and that hurts us. So we can't, that's why a major reason why we have to get this reform. We have to repeal 6.
So the 501c4, a lot of people are very familiar with a 501c3, which is typically a nonprofit. So this 501c4, which I wasn't familiar with until this whole thing started coming about, it kind of seems like it's under the guise of the same purpose, social issues and helping things like that, but it's not governed by the same rules as a 501c3, and it's not a or is it? Is it a non-for-profit?
It's non-for-profit.
The 501c3, C4.
C4 is not-for-profit as well.
They're both not-for-profit.
Right, they're both not.
But 501c4s are permitted to engage in political activities.
Oh, I see.
Whereas 501c3s can't.
Right. Mm-mm. And this is different from a political action committee, but is also kind of an influencer. People keep hearing about PAC funds and PAC money that's been put in, and these are big dollars that can be funneled into campaigns. Yeah, go ahead.
But for all practical purposes, the same thing, because they can hide the identity of the donors. That's the other problem.
You're not allowed to know. The weirdest thing about these PACs that everyone needs to know, by law, if there's an issue, say Sean's running right now, and we're going to talk figuratively. If there's a subject, say Sean's very pro-gas. If dark money and pro-gas can attack Sean's opponent, but Sean can know nothing about it, that's sort of how they get around it. And I agree with Sean. I'm 100% for campaign finance reform. I think it's really scary that corporations actually run your politics. When we say there's 98% of things that Sean and I agree with, this is one of them. Hey, and you know what? If people really want, if you're a political junkie, which you might be listening to this, dig into the weeds on this issue. You were talking about the House. A good friend of Senator O'Brien and I is a gentleman. He's a state rep named Freddie Strayhorn. He wrote an amazing article in the Hannah Report, and you can get that online, Hannah Report. And in the report, he says, and this isn't a swipe at the Democrats, but he says, for all the Democrats that are upset about Larry Householder, you need to look in the mirror, because there was a really weird situation that happened in the House with the election and the assent of the Speaker. And what happened was he was going up against Ryan Smith, and neither one had the ability to secure the votes to become the Speaker. If anything, Ryan Smith was ahead of Householder. And what happened was 100% of not 100%, but about 90% of the Democrats voted with Householder. And Freddie was the minority leader before, and he saw these things in the future, the 6 and everything coming. So he was trying to stop it. So I think it's really interesting when you have something like this unfold and people are pointing fingers at who's to blame. Sometimes we're all to blame. And even like stuff that Sean and I have done together, very rarely does Sean and I ever point a finger at each other saying, hey, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Because we talk about everything. We talk every day. And things are really interesting. And Sean's leaving this situation that happened in the House. He says to me, he goes, Michael, this is campaign financing reform. And I thought that was unique because he's the only guy in the whole Cap Squared that was talking like this. Everyone's just like, well, we knew they were doing this, or those guys were doing this, or you. And when Freddie Strayhorn's article came out, I said, wait a minute, we need to look in the mirror. We're the ones that put this in the power. It's us. And Sean was the only guy in my universe that was saying, hey, this is a campaign finance reform. By the way, the Speaker of Illinois got booted about 2 weeks before ours. So this isn't just to Ohio. This is a country thing, like you mentioned before. This is a national thing.
I was reading up on this last night, and I saw that the prosecutor called this the largest public corruption case in Ohio ever. which got me just kind of digging around a little bit more. I ended up on the FBI website where they had a tab for the biggest public corruption cases the FBI has ever been involved in, which this will be one eventually, right? Or, they're in it now. And there's a half a dozen things listed there. They're all smaller than this. This is enormous.
This is huge.
We shouldn't even talk about it as a $60 million scam. That's just what he raked out of his end of it. It's a $1.3 billion theft from the people of Ohio.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the big thing is this is long-term planning. This whole enterprise was over several years. One, getting Larry Householder back into the House. Two, getting him made to be the next speaker. And the money that was involved then, and just kept flowing and flowing to this 501c4, and it just kept going and going. And you can see when you look at the FBI's affidavit, $250,000, $1 million a month. The money just kept flowing. It's unbelievable. But if you look at it from the standpoint of the company, they're getting $1.2 billion for $60 million. Well, that's a heck of a return on investment. So it was a pretty good investment for them.
With your background as a prosecutor and reading the affidavit, what's your take? Your professional take, having prosecuted criminals in the past.
And working with the feds back when I was a prosecutor, they don't usually indict unless it's pretty well taped up and wrapped up as a bow, as a present. So, for them to issue, especially against a politician, it seems that, their ducks are in a row. With the indictment yesterday, it's not looking pretty good from Larry Householder.
Crazy stuff, man. This would make a excellent movie script. Maybe someday it will. Maybe we should...
I think it'll be there eventually.
Yeah, we should talk about getting the rights to that thing over here at Two Ticks. I want to talk a little bit about the bipartisanship, too, though, because watching you guys interact together, you mentioned the term bromance. These two guys first came in, they're like chummy chum buddies, man. They're kind of talking smack with one another, and it's cool to see. Sean was just recently voted by Cleveland.com by a peer poll, not just by the website itself, but you were voted most bipartisan member of the Senate by your peers, which has got to be awesome. And then to see this kind of interaction, and as a disclaimer to people, I want people to understand, Sean is going to be seeking re-election in the fall. I will be part of his campaign. I've been a part of his campaigns from the beginning. I was kidding someone the other day. We met one of his consultants, for lack of better terms. I don't want to say his name or whatever, and he was asking questions and kind of gauging me to see, because in this game, it's all about trust and it's about how you can deliver and you have your expertise. And he was kind of vetting me and saying, he wants to know if he can trust me because he's sharing these polling data and stuff. And I told him, I go, dude, you wouldn't be at this table, and neither would Sean, had he not come through Two Ticks and the Dog. Now, Sean kids and talks about reviving, he's revived my career.
Well, I don't, I want to, Two Ticks and a Dog is
after the debacle of the Warrens mayor's race.
Well, I was just going to say, so two of the three of you, kind of came through the office. One of you's a winner. Dennis, we'll maybe catch him next time. But I just think that's awesome that you guys are doing that. And I want to make a disclaimer. We're not here to kind of prop Sean up. I wanted to really ask these two senators questions about the issues concerning the state. And Mike and I have some history way back, probably a decade ago. We both were training handgun safety and taking to get our CCW. But you guys are both, here's to my point. You're both in the Sportsman Caucus. You're both heads of the Ohio Sportsman Caucus. You both are...
We're co-chairs in the Senate of the Sportsman Caucus. We both have our CCWs. We both like to shoot. He comes over to my farm, and we shoot regularly. And
how come I never got the invite, bro? What's up?
I've heard how you shoot.
I was just going to say, are you afraid to get shown up? You must be.
Well, not shown up or shot at.
Well, when we had that first meeting, we were just talking about down in Youngstown, over 2 years ago, right? Over 2 years ago. And so, of course, I wanted to see his sense of humor. I started busting his chops. So I said, so how soon you could take away my guns? He says, I'm going to be the one that's going to reload your guns. And I was like, oh, man, this guy's all right. You're not my regular Democrat, are you?
Well, that's an important issue in the state and obviously an important issue in the nation. It keeps coming up in polls. Tell us about it, Sean. Are the Dems looking to take guns away from people?
No, and you hear that a lot. And if you look at Obama when he was president, more guns were sold during his presidency than any other time. So, I think
which maybe not be the solution either. That's my 2 cents.
But I mean, you got to be respectful of a firearm, have education with the firearm, know how to use it, and I think those are common sense initiatives that should be followed up on. But at the same time, I don't think that we're looking at anyone's, taking away. I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment. I've grown up hunting, and, my dad taught me firearms from the very beginning, how to respect them. And I think those are important traditions that need to be upheld. I think the Second Amendment is one of, I strongly believe in. So, I cringe and question people when they say Democrats want to take your guns. I strongly disagree with it. I'm a Democrat, and I don't want to take anyone's guns. I shoot and enjoy it, and I taught my children how to shoot and how to use a gun, and it's something I firmly believe in.
Well, you brought up the key word, which my son's 7 now, and I'm teaching him respect for the weapon, right? A handgun or a gun in general. There's only one purpose for it, right? Now people can say, target practice and enjoyment and sportsmanship and all other stuff, but the gun at its baseline is for one thing, and that's taking a life of another living being, right?
Well, it's for hunting, and it's also for
which is taking the life of another living being, right? Not a human being, but a living being.
And it's also, I enjoy target shooting, and
sure.
I haven't hunted in a couple of years because I've been busy. I've gone out, I haven't gotten anything, but I enjoy in an afternoon when Mike comes over to the house. We put up some targets, and I can show him how, as a Democrat, can outshoot him. I like to, so. I find that enjoyable, and Mike doesn't as much as I do, but
I do too, and I do like to target shoot, and I do like to stay proficient. I didn't grow up around guns. I was never a gun guy. My grandfather was a World War II combat vet. Actually, both my grandfathers, and so that was part of the conversations. But for me, it was I want to have this and never need it, rather than need it at some point and not have it. But the whole respect thing, and you coming from a prosecutorial background and working with the police and that kind of stuff, when you see gun violence or you see crimes on the street, do you guys feel that, I don't want to use the term strict, but better, or I don't want to use the term restrictions, but initiatives to possibly keep it so that it's safer, so that we're practicing safety and we're practicing respect when we teach people?
Well, I think this is perfect question for Sean and I right here, right now. People always tease us, like, has anyone ever ran together as a Democrat and a Republican, say, for like a governor or something like that? And like, if this country is going to continue for another 250 years, we got to do a lot better. And let me explain. We're not allowed to have a conversation. We're not allowed to have a conversation about monuments. We're not allowed to have a conversation about abortion. We're not allowed to have a conversation about guns. We're not allowed to have a conversation about campaign finance reform. We're not allowed to have a conversation because someone wants to destroy you. Those nasty trolls out there will destroy you anytime you want to have a conversation. Well, how on that? What? Are you supposed to live without a conversation? You know what? I am a lifelong Golden Eagle member of the NRA. I love the NRA. I love the Second Amendment. But even Sean and I have had late night talks with a cigar, maybe a nice
coffee,
or
nice modern method.
Coffee. Well, I'm married in Irish, and now one of my best friends is Irish. So while in Ireland, but like. Here, if you want to get into the weeds, which we don't have time to do, but here's a couple different things. Mm-hmm. 2 or 3 of my friends own gun shops. They say to me, you know what? I'm a gun shop owner. We're all NRA. We're all pro-Second Amendment. But why are you allowed to go to a gun show without a background check? And for me, let me give you a little weird way to do another analysis of it. So we have these grocery stores. I have over 17 inspectors in these stores every day, everything from weights and measures, Department of Agriculture, Mahoney County Health Department, State Health Department, Department of Origin. I'll just keep going. But you could have a farm market on the side where you'll never be inspected. You'll go right up the street from me, no occupancy permit, no taxes, all cash money, and you're going to do business all day long. And in my gut, that's sort of, I understand it's a small guy. I never call anybody or anything like that because I believe in free market and all this stuff. Not as far as slave labor across the seas. That's a different thing than we're talking right now. But if you're a gun shop owner, is it fair that you could go to a gun show and you could do all that? There's no background checks. Now, how about if you have mental problems? How about bump stocks? These are things that we could have serious conversations at. But the way the temperature is of political life in America, you cannot. You can't have a discussion about abortion. You are not allowed. And what kind of country are we supposed to have? Aren't we supposed to build a better machine where we could actually talk and then maybe go get a steak dinner afterwards? It's okay. Half of my family's Republican, half are Democrat. My mom's brother was an international union president. I'm named after Michael Bendis. Anyone that was up at Delphi, you know exactly who it is. Pat and Mike Bendis. That's my aunt and uncle. And so I understand the Democrats. I'm a Republican. Grand old party forever, or party of Lincoln. I mean, I love being a Republican, but I love Democrats too. But we have to have a conversation. And the idea that we can't have a conversation about guns is sad. And we both know because we have to go too far with it. Same thing with abortion. The conversation has to go so far that we're gonna fist fight each other. It's sad.
We've got to find common ground, right? Agree on the common ground stuff first.
And right now I have my Lincoln socks on, so.
He does. We're going to put that on the picture maybe. But tell him what we did on Lincoln's birthday together.
Well, we were in D.C. and we went to Ford's Theater together. And, we were down there with the LG Chem and meeting with the Koreans to talk about it.
We held hands.
Well, I don't know if we held hands, but we did go to the Ford's Theater. We're both, big
Not
Lincoln
that there's anything
fans.
wrong with you and I holding hands.
I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying.
You guys got together and sang Kumbaya together.
But we did sing Kumbaya, and it was pretty,
we sang Battle Hymn of the Republic together.
Well, not well, but we did. But it was, again, we're trying to find, what's right for the Valley. We're down there. We both respect our traditions, and we were down there with Tim Ryan trying to work on talking with the Koreans to understand, welcome to the Valley. We're going to roll out the welcome mat and do what we can to make our area the Voltage Valley of the U.S. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, and that's pretty exciting of some of the things that we have going on
when
there.
Him and I road trip together, we bear fruit. I mean, we did the road trip right after I got elected, right down to Cincinnati. When remember it was January, and I said, we got to find a product because between Jim Graham and all the different UAW leaders, they all shopped in the store. So I always remember we got to find a product. We got to find a product. We got to get a product. As soon as you get a product, you're looking for the next product. And so I'm just talking.
Remember we heard about Lordstown Motors and we said, okay, we want to meet with them. So they came up to the State House. We met with them and we're like, okay, it sounds like you have a good deal, but we've been, in the Valley kind of fooled before, and we said, we want to see the real deal. We want to go down there and actually see it. Right. So we actually went down to Cincinnati at Workhorse and visited the plant and saw, before anybody, the endurance and what it really meant. And I think from there we got pretty excited and realized this is the real deal.
Well, let me just back up real quick because I just want to define it for the listeners that aren't from Northeast Ohio and haven't followed this story. We got some listeners out of state and wherever. What these guys are talking about is the closure of GM after they did not pick up another product line, as Mike was referring to. And now Lordstown Motors coming in and developing what's now being touted and known as the Endurance all-electric pickup truck that's only has 4 moving parts, the batteries and the wheels. I mean, this is really
state of the art,
high tech, futuristic. And if you ever, go on Google, and Google,
they just launched a promotional video.
Did you see the video?
Facebook today?
Yeah, great video.
Yeah,
great video.
And so we watched that yesterday, and it was man. And if you look at the pictures, it looks like something out of Lost in Space that they drove around as they landed.
Mm-hmm.
When Sean and I went there, because it was nothing like we expected, because being still Still City USA. I mean, the grid is gritty, and the haters are everyone's skeptic, and they're just like, how could this company only does $20 million a year? How can they go into Lordstown? Well, we get there, the place looks like Silicon Valley, man. There's golden retrievers and hacky sacks going around. It didn't look anything like a car plant at all. But what it did have there had several dozen UPS trucks, and on the side of the UPS truck it said electrical vehicle. And one of the first things I realized that this company, because this guy, Steve Burns, is the real deal, man. He is the Elon Musk east of the Mississippi. I mean, he has over 700 patents on the wheel hub technology. This guy is probably second to Elon Musk. And when we saw these UPS trucks, I said, what's the dealio? He says, we got about 600 UPS trucks, all electric in all 50 states. We have over 80 million miles logged, and we're doing testing on them constantly because we're going to build the best electric work vehicle there ever is. He goes, do you guys want to drive one? And Sean and I jumped in this bad boy, and I mean the acceleration you feel on. Oh my
incredible.
God, unreal.
So one thing I think your listeners need to know is that they are right now. The post office is putting out requests for bids on replacing their aging model current vehicles, and right now, Workhorse combined with Lordstown Motors
we're down to 2 out of 200. I have 200 possibilities. It's down to us and Oshkosh. We're waiting for and if that happens, explosion.
So they're looking at that a $7 billion contract. So if they could get that contract, they would be made here in Lordstown. So that's pretty exciting, and that's one thing your listeners kind of need to know is that. That is out there, and that's another reason why we went down there. But that's something big that can happen for the Valley, and we're pushing forward on that. We're working with our federal delegation to try and get
You've talked to Sherrod Brown a couple times. I've had 3 or 4 meetings with Rob Portman. I mean, we're full court press on this. I mean, if anyone wants to write any of the congressmen, or especially anyone in the administration, whether you like the guy or not, this is, I mean, you're looking at 4,000 jobs.
At least.
Plus, and then, LG Chem's going to be there, Voltage Valley.
Sure. And then you had Pence here just a couple weeks ago, showcasing the unveiling of the Endurance. I mean, how much, more publicity can you get? And, that just shows that this is a viable product and it's moving forward in the right direction.
That's right.
You guys are very excited. It's actually making me very excited.
I just hope it all happens before Trump outlaws the Postal Service.
Let me ask you guys a question. I want to back up because I think it's important. A lot of people don't really know what a state rep does, what a state senator does, what a commissioner does, what a this, what a that. You guys are in the economic development business, but what's the nuts and bolts? How do 2 senators working together assist a company like Lordstown Motors or LG Chem get here into the Valley?
Well, we don't create jobs. Business creates the jobs. What we do is make the ground fertile or try to make it fertile, whether what we do is we look at are there tax abatements or are there money that the state has that could put forward in a project to make it viable? What are the things out there that could make this happen? And one of the things that, I've looked at is when I introduce a bill that has tax incentives, like, for instance, Mike and I introduced a tax incentive for alternative fuel vehicles, electric vehicles. But I always sunset it because I think we should sunset every tax abatement that we give and then readdress it and look at it. Is it doing what's supposed to do? Is it creating the jobs that we thought it would do? Because a lot of these abatements get in there and they become, strong footholds in concrete, and lobbyists protect them, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, yet companies are still getting a lot of the breaks that they have. I think that we should sunset almost every tax abatement and look at it every 5 years and say, is it doing what's supposed to be doing? And so part of what we do is make sure that the money that is raised is spent correctly, and that if there's abatements out there, it's used correctly, and try and make the ground basically fertile so that businesses, when they do come, they're able to plant and grow and create new jobs and help the community.
Also, to tie on to that, I think there's been at least a half dozen projects in both of our districts that we got involved where somebody's coming in, and these have been some smaller businesses, maybe like 50 to 200 employees, where something in the state is a roadblock, and they're not budging because they're all on Columbus and they don't care. They don't care. And this area in particular has always been neglected in Columbus, at least for the last 30 years. So what Sean and I do is when we're in Columbus, we go to that department together and we just create so much squeaky that they just want to shut us up. So we will help anyone listening that's a business owner. If you're in either one of our districts, get a hold of our office. we want you to come. We want to make it very inviting for you to come
Sure,
here.
and throughout the term, we've had people come to us with ideas or different, and we try and point them in the right direction. Jobs Ohio, get them set up with them, get them, into the right areas of where to
Chamber
go.
of Commerce,
Chamber of Commerce, and everyone working together. And I think it takes the local, the state, and the feds working together to make something like this happen. I know Tim Ryan is working on some monies in the federal budget right now to help our area become the Voltage Valley with battery research to make, the big thing is, and it's the future, are electric vehicles. So the batteries are all important. How do we make them more productive? Not just for electric vehicles, but as we develop that type of research here, a battery that's used in a car, if you have the right research and that battery can later be increased or used for storage from solar or for wind power and used
Your
at home.
residence, right?
Yeah, so now
and safely, right? You got to make sure it's safe.
Oh, absolutely, but that's what the research does.
Yeah, I wanted to ask something specific about that. I'm involved with this Fund for Warren's Future, which is an economic development fund. Sam Cavalli, Anthony Payavalis, Mayor Franklin. The biggest financial commitment we've made so far is to Bright, to the energy innovation just down the block from us.
Yeah.
And to your point you were just making, Sean, a number of their companies are not involved directly in the automotive industry, but they're using that battery technology actually, it relates to both of you. They're using them in stores and restaurants and places like that to keep foods cold and fresh and so forth. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit. My question is, what specifically, can you talk about Bright a little bit and what you see as potential there for what the next steps?
Absolutely. So Bright is an integral partner of what we're talking about with the Voltage Valley. And I think we need to explain a little bit about what we mean by that. So what we want to do is work with Lordstown Motors, with LG Chem, with Eastern Gateway Community College to bring those resources together to create a Voltage Valley. And we're going to need entities like Bright that have the expertise to help us augment that technology. And I think that's what we're focusing on. YSU will focus on some of the research and getting that part done. Eastern Gateway Community College is going to focus on training the workers for the future because you need specific types of training for these types of jobs in the future. We have already attracted some businesses, but Senator Rulli has been talking with some charging stations, people to come here and build here. And I think once we start moving during that, it's just like an avalanche. I mean, the first snowflake, and then it starts going and builds and builds and builds. And then it becomes so powerful you can't stop it. And Bright is an integral part of that. They've been at the table at discussions. We've been meeting with Jim Tressel. In fact, I just talked to him today about this and, what's going on with Tim Ryan putting in about $15 million for different projects to help augment this. I think this is what we need to do. We need to continue to do that. Senator Rulli and I are working on legislation that is going to give some tax abatements and some other support to entities that want to come into the area and develop that are specific to electric vehicles or battery testing and those types of things. And I think once we have that and that out there, that this area is known for this, other companies will come and it just builds on itself. And I think having all of us at the state, federal, and local levels working together to recognize that this is our new definition of who we are. This is our time. This is our new revolution. We had the, GM with the cars there for a while. We were the Steel Valley. And now, I'm tired of hearing about the Rust Valley. We're no longer that. We are the electric battery capital of the world, and we need to develop that and bring those entities because that's the future. That's what's going to create jobs. That's what's going to keep people here. That's what's going to change the quality of life for the better. So that's why I think, as you said, Bright makes great sense and they're part of the equation. And I think we have the right team. Tressel's on board. I talked to Art Daly from Eastern Gateway Community College, and we're all focusing together.
So listeners, too, just to kind of wrap back up about Bright, because we've mentioned excuse me, we mentioned a couple times, it was the Downtown Energy Incubator here set in Warren. Rick Stockberger is the CEO, and he actually talks. If you go back episode 36 of the show, we actually interview Rick, and he talks about like the charging stations. Like we have a charging station back here in Dave Grohl Alley in the parking deck. That's a 2-level charger, right? So it charges your batteries faster and things of that nature. So some of the specifics, but I think it's awesome that you're mentioning those things in conjunction with the shedding this idea or image of the Rust Belt, which we've talked about in other shows that I hate. I hate that terminology. And I don't know if I'm necessarily bought into Voltage Valley, though the more repetition, we talk about reach and frequency when we talk about television, the more times I hear it, the more times it kind of sticks with me. And I'm like, yeah, it is kind of cool. Rust or like a lightning bolt? What do you want to be? You want to be Rust or a lightning bolt?
Well, and just to chime in here for a second, so like when I first got involved with this with Sean was like, man, you're even more excited about all this stuff than I am, and what gives? So for all my Republican friends that are out there going to listen, where in life are you able to marry capitalism and environmentalism? Right here, right now, let's do it. And I mean, and I know, I mean, Sean's a normal Democrat, but some of the far left Democrats are like, I hate it when you say that. I hate it when you say that. But isn't that what America is, man? If we could say, hey, listen, us Republicans, like 3 of my best friends are members of Ducks Unlimited. Did anyone know that Ducks Unlimited actually preserves more of American land than any other people in the entire world? And that's a fact. Ducks Unlimited. So like a lot of us conservatives, we actually love Earth. We love the way, I own 100 acres. I love it. It looks like Hocking Hills. I do not want any of this country destroyed. I love it. I love the environment. And so if we can make money, because that's not actually an evil thing. I mean, let's not be addicted to the government. I want less government. I mean, why would you want the government to tell you how to live? And Sean and I agree on this. Government should not dictate to your life. But I tell you what, if we can make some money and save the earth, why not?
And create jobs. And it's the future.
All about jobs, yeah.
And it's the future. It really is. And this is a unique time for the Valley to seize upon this. I think having Lordstown Motors, LG Chem, and these companies coming here, it's an exciting time. And if we could build that, that's going to attract the engineers and the chemists and all the right kind of businesses that we need here to make our community grow.
Good campaign stumping there. I like that.
I'm not running for office right now.
Rulli, I'm coming out
I'll see you in 2 years.
I'm coming out to the farm, man. I like Hocking Hills. Yeah, it's very exciting. It's very exciting times. I'm truly excited, like listening to you guys talk about it, and certainly I think there's a lot more discussion we could have. I do want to switch gears just a little bit because there's something else that I know is like real close to your guys' heart. And for the prodders out there that don't know, Rulli was a public servant prior to becoming a state representative. He was on the Latonia School Board for a long time, and Sean O'Brien, before he became a state rep and then a state senator, I was a part of this forming of the. But Sean was really a driving force in forming the Trumbull County Community Foundation, which raised monies for seniors to help assist seniors with prescription drugs. And we've also worked together. I introduced him to my good friend Derek Tolles with Inspiring Minds that helps educate, underserved youths. And so can you see where I'm going? I'm going towards education, which is a thing that whether you're a blue or a red or you're purple or you're green or you're gay, you're straight, you're an R, you're a D, you're a left, you're a right, you're old, you're young, blah, 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 blah. Okay. It's all got to be about education, because the only thing that's going to propel us into the future and help us better define our purpose as a species, okay, not just like as a society or a country. What are we doing here? I think if we define that purpose, and actually I'm pointing at Dennis because we talked about this for the country when we started talking about people running for president and defining purposes and how that can help us do what these two senators are doing, which is work together. But right now what's happening, and you both have kids, you both have families, okay, and this is obviously close to constituents' hearts. There's a debate going on in every household across the country where kids are going back to school. If you have children, I would, maybe not in every household, but most, every single person that I've talked to in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and a topic of conversation every day for the last 2 weeks with my wife and I, and we're on a little bit different trajectories. We're on different sides of this conversation, is sending your kids back to school during this pandemic that continues to, goes up, it goes down, the numbers, the spiking, the testing, it's just a topic of conversation. How are you guys reacting to that? What can you do as fathers, and what can you do as senators to help our kids remain safe, both now and into the future?
Well, I was on the school board for a decade, saved a school district. It's probably one of the highlights besides having my kids. Big public school guy, just get that out there, because people see the R and they said, oh, you hate I love public schools. Public school grad, my wife, all my whole family. My wife actually works for the school, so she's an employee of a public school. She's a administrative assistant. She's been there for 4 or 5 years, and she is very, 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 very strict mask. My son has asthma. We have parents that have, compromised immune. So I understand the whole process. So this is my opinion. We'll move to Sean in a second. I'm not 100% sure if he's on the exact same opinion I am. So I think by dealing I've been a frontliner. I've been ringing register, cutting meat since the day the pandemic started. I've worked with every organization, whether it's Ohio Grocers, National Grocers, Department of Health, you name it. Spent tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars at my store making it safe, whether it's plexiglass, 145,000 pairs of latex gloves we've given out, thousands of face shields, masks, training, social distancing, constant announcing, education to the public. I understand how you function in society, and you can be safe about it. I get it. Now, the schools, in my opinion, we have to go back to school. Now, I think there's a lot of things that go along with it. There's no clear-cut case. It's not black and white. It's a very methodical, very detailed, very overwhelming thought process, and there's so many different possibilities. First of all, if you have a child that is compromised, please do not send them to school. I think every school district in the state is going to offer online education. So if you have a son or a daughter with severe asthma or recuperating from cancer, your child should not be in school. Okay, I don't want to go too deep on whether we're going to have a mandatory mask for the kids in the school. That's for another debate. But there's so many possibilities for safety. I mean, I like the idea where you could do maybe half the classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, half the classes on Tuesday and Thursday, and then you could split them up. This way you go from 28 to 32 in a classroom. You get a teacher's assistant, you divide it in half. That's 14 kids per class. There's plenty of room for social distancing. X off every other chair. Make everyone have either a lunch or get a lunch at the cafeteria. Eat by yourself. There's ways that we can do this. Once we get into the spring, there should be a lot more clearing of the storm of the COVID that is haunting every one of us. But there's a lot of problems when you keep your kids at home, and when you have some of these inner city schools. I'm dealing with Youngstown School District. I'm at the leader. I work with Pastor Simon for the academic distress. I understand the topic in detail, and that's not for today, but I understand it in detail. And I understand what happens when you leave your kids at home. Some of these schools are showing 37 to 41% of the kids never logged on the entire time during the pandemic. So if we don't send our kids, Youngstown's not sending them now. So there's going to be a whole year the Youngstown kids are not in school, and I'm not going to critique it. I'm not going to condemn it. I'm just saying a whole year at home is going to hurt urban America. And then let me explain. Your more affluent people are someone's going to be able to stay home. Someone's going to be able to get a tutor. Someone's going to have a mom that's going to come over. There's going to be someone that's going to be helping the education of the kid at home. And I mean, that's just a fact. So, and I know some people want to make it political, say the kids have to stay home. Absolutely no school. I find that silly. There's 11 European countries that have already brought the kids back to school. Now, having said that, any superintendent or school board that thinks it's business as usual in the school is a fool. because this is a very real virus, and you cannot go back to school as business as usual. You better come up with your game plan. You better make it good. You better open it to the public. You better have debate. You better look at it again. You better keep fixing it every single day, just like we do at the stores. Every day at the store, we're changing protocol. We're trying to be safer. We're sanitizing more. I mean, you just have to do better. In my opinion, the kids cannot just stay at home. And don't forget what I said. If you have a child with compromised, they need to stay home. They should not be in that building no matter what. And I don't know where you're at, Sean.
Well, I agree. If your child's sick, don't send them to school. But I think each school district needs to look at it differently. What happens in Brookfield or Bristol is different than Warren. You know, some of these schools are very small and don't have a huge population, so they don't have a lot of COVID or chance of getting COVID. I think listen to your superintendents. I know we've been in discussions with the ESCs and the superintendents on, you know, things that we can do to try and help them. But each school is developing their own protocols based on what they see going forward. You know, if there's a high risk, you know, you have more kids going to Warren, so there's a higher probability of getting it there versus a smaller school that doesn't have, you know, they're very rural, so there's not very much chance. Each school, I think, has to look at their students and the ability, you know, the chances of getting it, and the precautions need to follow those chances. You know, the mask wearing and, you know, the face shields all need to be part of the discussion and what is best for the students, because we want students to be safe first. That's number one. And education and learning, that's part of it as well. But if they have to do it at home, or if they have to go 2 days, or if they have to do 3 days, and as Mike just said, I think what we need to do is evaluate it. If it changes, if you do in a small school have a student with it, what do you do? What is the plan moving forward? And I think the schools have been addressing that, and I think they have programs, and they've been reaching out, at least I know the ones in my district have, to the parents to say, here's what we're going to do if this happens, and then if this happens. So there's contingency plans. So I think that's what we need to do, and we have to evaluate them all individually, and each school district has to look at what is affecting their school and the precaution plan that they have.
Dennis, anything to add? I know you have no school-age children anymore, but you do have a brand new grandbaby.
2 of them,
Not of
actually.
school age, either one, but
They're too young, and I'm glad my children are too old to worry about in this respect. You know, I don't know what I would do if it were me. I think Mike laid out a good list of things, of pros, reasons to get back to school, and options for ways that might make it possible. And I follow this issue, but, you know, like a regular person, I don't know all the details. But it seems to me that the government so far has been unwilling to step up and put together a program and fund it. Most of our public schools in this country are barely getting by to do the job that they were expected to do pre-pandemic, and how they're going to add to this the incredibly complex set of logistics and mechanical steps that have to be taken to provide a safe environment. I don't know. It's beyond me. I don't understand what you do.
I think it's a scary situation. It's a scary situation for everyone to have to make a decision about. It's become and I've talked to a lot of moms and dads out there. My son's 7. He's about to go back into, that's live, not sound effects. Dennis is cracking a beer already because it's almost checkout time here, folks. But, you know, my son's 7, and I've been talking to a lot of parents that are obviously the same, you know, they're sending their kids back into 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. And they're very concerned. And I think what's happening, these challenges all across the nation, is sometimes I'm a person, I don't ever want to operate under a fear-based mentality. A little bit of fear goes a long way, a healthy amount of fear, as they say, kind of similar to talking about guns. You want to have respect for it, but you don't want to let it dictate what's happening.
Exactly.
Now, I don't think the data is sufficient enough, and we don't really know. And this is leaning towards my wife's side. You know, she's saying, you know, Jim, I don't think it's worth the risk. I'm immunocompromised, and we don't really are not. It's not that we're not concerned about our son, but we're not necessarily. You know, if you look at the case studies and you look at some of the science, the kids who have lower oxidative stress and lower issues, health issues, they're pretty much doing okay. but people who are immunocompromised, like Mike mentioned, or those who are older and have underlying conditions, these kids can possibly be transmitters, right? Yep. So they're going to go to school and they're going to bring it back home to mom and dad and or grandma or grandpa and or the teachers or whatever. And that's a scary proposition.
Jim, you just nailed the sweet spot right there. Right there is the sweet spot, because when these schools open up, I really don't think you're going to see a huge spike amongst the kids. But because, you know, the numbers are so low with children in the world getting this. But the problem is if they start being a carrier of it, and your guard's going to be down, and like some of these schools might be a little bit more lenient about who's wearing a mask and who's touching who and how far the social distancing is and all these things that really matter. And the kid comes home, the kid's so cute, and your mom comes over, and you know maybe she had chemo, and the kid looks healthy, the kid never gets sick, you know everything's good, but he's a carrier, and next thing you know your mom gets it. And you could lose your mom over it. So, I mean, don't freak out. It's not the end of the world, but be cautious. I mean, if we're cautious and we do this together and we keep the communication, this talk, like I think it's a theme over today. This is why we're here. Let's talk. Let's talk, right. Man. Let's not fight, man. I mean, peace and love. Man. That's what Sean tries to tell me, man. It's about bro, right? We're bros, man. We're in this together, right. Man. We're in this together.
That's right.
Well, that's a good note to kind of end on, as we're all being bros, as Dennis has brought some Panthertown Pilsner, courtesy of Modern Methods, and we're sharing it.
No, it's courtesy of Dennis.
Oh. Well, thanks, Dennis. Yeah. We're all sharing a little taste, which is good. People need to sit more around the campfire and, quote unquote, both either literally or figuratively, sit around the campfire and have these discussions. And certainly those folks at home, your wife or your husband or your mom and dad or whatever, your students of the age that are going to be part of the decision-making process, just like Michael said, you know, peace and love, have some patience, have some compassion for one another. Don't fight. Don't fight. I'm saying this to my wife. If she listens, let's have some compassion. We'll figure it all out together.
I got one little thing to say. When I was at Emerson College, I had Cornell West as a professor, actually. Yeah, we know who Cornell is.
Yeah, Cornell came and spoke at Bowling Green. I had a great conversation and lunch with him afterwards.
You know, he's pretty far opposite of me, but he was one of my favorite professors. And he moved on to Harvard. But we had all these different classes that really are off the beat. And one of the classes we had, he played a Dick Cavett show. And I always say this to Sean. So on his Dick Cavett show, he had Abby Hoffman and he had William Buckley. And these two went at it. I mean, they're talking and they're going at it. And I mean, it's getting pretty heated. And so you can see Dick Cavett's getting a little nervous. And before you knew it, the show was over. Just like right now, the show's over. So the show's over. And so Abby Hoffman jumps up to his feet and gets right in Buckley's face. And he goes, "William F. Buckley." And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "I tell you what, we disagree almost everything." And he puts his hand out and he gives him a bro hug and he shakes his hand. He goes, "I'll take a bullet in my head so you could say your peace of mind every day." And I think if we don't get to that, we're not going to have a country.
We're all Americans.
All Americans.
We're all Americans.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
You too, brother.
Man, what a great... That's nice to see.
USA.
That's nice to see.
Is this a hockey team, 1980?
That's nice to see these two guys on opposite sides of the aisle. I do want to carry it out and wish Sean good luck. He has a re-election campaign coming up.
Thank you.
His district is part of northern Trumbull County, Ashtabula, and a little piece of Geauga
and
up
Trumbull.
I said that.
Did you?
Yeah,
okay.
northern Trumbull.
Yep. All of
Ashtabula.
Trumbull. All of Trumbull.
All of Trumbull County.
Yep. All of Trumbull County, all of Ashtabula County, and a sliver of Geauga.
There we go. Okay.
You should try and find somebody to do your campaign who knows something about it.
Yeah.
Listen,
He's good looking, though.
I told you, I brought him back.
Listen, it's easy to get confused. We're juggling a lot of candidates, about to juggle a lot of candidates. I get confused sometimes because the 63rd and 65th also, as I make excuses. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Prodcast. Please share it with your friends, family, and all those who have concerns in Ohio, and really anywhere. I think these guys are a great example of exemplary teamwork that can be had if we all work together and we put aside the R&D and we put aside the left and right and just, what's the purpose? The purpose is to make Northeast Ohio better, and here's two guys that are doing it. And so, Mike, Sean, I really want to thank you guys for coming on. It's
Hey,
been
thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me, Mike. Jim?
But Dennis, thanks for bringing the beer.
Yeah, thanks,
And
Dennis.
he's only had half of one, I promise. He doesn't even remember my name anymore, which is tantamount to the strength of some of these beers sometimes. Hey, real quick, guys, while we're sitting here, I want to just say this real quick. These guys came in with masks on, socially distanced, and we're socially distanced in the studio. Now, of course, we don't have them on because we're sipping on some beer. But be safe out there. It's okay to be an individual and have your beliefs, but let's just take care of each other,
Absolutely.
okay? And if it's as simple as something as putting a piece of cloth over nobody likes it, okay? Nobody likes it.
It's not forever. It's not forever.
It's not forever.
And it's not just for you.
And the greatest generation and those who came up had to bear way heavier weights and
Absolutely.
sacrifices. This is come on. So anyways, I want to thank you guys for both coming today. Dennis, thanks for coming, and we're going to go enjoy this beer. Until the next time, ladies and gents, be kind and stay electrified. Visit theprodcast.net and sign up for your free giveaway. Talk to you all soon.